I think that what inspires me the most is having fun.
Yeah.
And playing music is fun. It's always been really fun to me. And also surfing is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like an extension of childhood in a way, like the way you play and, there's no much outcome.
Yeah.
But you're just having fun. Are you ready, boys? Start swimming.
That's Aska Matsumiya. I'm Jamie Brisick. This is Soundings, brought to you by the Surfer's Journal. The Journal is a member-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from FCS, Finisterre, Howler Brothers, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, and Yeti. More like a book than a magazine, the Journal delivers 136 pages of independent storytelling every 8 weeks, covering the people, culture, travel, and art of surfing. If you want to learn more, if you'd like to subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. Aska spent her childhood in Japan, moved to California when she was 12, and presently lives in Malibu. A composer, a musician, and a visual artist, Aska works across film, television, advertising, and music production. I first encountered her work in The Wolf Pack, a documentary about a reclusive New York family, for which she and a couple others composed a haunting score. I first met Aska in person on a full moon night surfing excursion in Venice Beach with Kasia Miador and several others. Aska's daughter Babel joined us. We thought we'd be alone out there, but no, there were many. Aska composed the score for the feature film I'm Your Woman, directed by Julia Hart, the skateboarding comedy series Betty, directed by Crystal Moselle, and the Halle Berry-directed sports drama Bruised. She's collaborated with many brands in the advertising space, including Porsche, Chanel, Hermes, Miu Miu, Prada, and Audi, and she scored the short film I'm Here for Spike Jonze. She partnered with A24 and acclaimed director Koganada on the film After Yang, in which she collaborated with the behemoth composer Ryuichi Sakamoto, and she also makes and releases her own non-commercial music. Aska and her good friend Pazlan Chantin composed the theme song for Season 5 of Soundings, which we're very thankful for. We spoke at my place in Malibu. Birds trilled on the deck. Leaf blowers messed with our audio. Aska, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you grew up in Japan. You lived there until you were 12. When you were 12, you moved to Northern California.
Yes.
Was there music in your household growing up?
Well, my dad, he plays guitar and he sings. His favorite song to play on guitar is Puff the Magic Dragon.
Oh, yeah. My dad liked that one as well. I love that song.
But he sings that with very heavy Japanese accent my
Great.
whole entire life. But I grew up playing classical piano since I was 3.
Okay.
Because my mom really loved classical music. So I think like she listened to lots of classical music when she got pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and she continued. And like we had a player piano in our house
Mm-hmm.
that I showed interest in, so I started early. Yeah.
The classical music would have been playing while you were growing in your mother's belly.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you think to yourself, like, this is something I want to do, this is something I'm really interested in?
It's funny when you start something at early age, like 3, you don't know anything else. You don't know anything less than what you know. So it was just like I always just thought I was supposed to play music.
Wow.
That's all I knew.
Have you ever done anything else, or has this always been your work and your livelihood?
No, I have not done anything else. And actually surfing was the only other thing that I got into in my life that I was obsessed with as much as music. I
Wow.
have never experienced that with anything else in my life.
God, it's so incredible because so many of the great surfers that you and I probably both really like, that's sort of like their arc is they come to it at a very young age before they even realize that they're going to have to work when they're adults. And then they do this thing. It's like the most natural sort of way into working life that you could have. And it sounds like you had a very similar one, but with music. What did you listen to when you were growing up?
I listened to lots of classical music. And of course, because growing up in Japan, I listened to Ryuichi Sakamoto, more modern. And I listened to the Beatles when I was growing up. My dad loved the Beatles. And yeah, that's what I guess that is the kind of music I grew up listening to. But heavily classical music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you started making music, was it on the piano? Was it guitar?
I didn't start making my own music until later in my life, maybe 23. But I was in a band since I was 16. So I was I'd be making music with other people, but not by myself.
I see. Where in Northern California were you guys?
We first moved to this college town called Chico. But then we moved to Orange County, and I went to high school in Orange County.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the band that you were in when you were 16, was it punk rock? What type of music?
I was going to art school to study classical music, and at art school I ended up meeting a bunch of kids who are into punk music, and I started going to punk shows in Orange County, and I've been so devoted. I have devoted my whole life to classical music that I never actually saw anybody express music in that way, the punk music scene, that it blew my mind that I actually quit school within a month and I joined a band.
Wow. And what did you play in the band?
I played keyboards.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I think in one way, punk and classical are at opposite ends of the spectrum, but then the
opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it, did it feel, was there a kind of accessibility, the sort of DIY-ness of punk and having less rules and being less steeped in long tradition that appealed to you? Or what was it that made you think punk rock is what I want to do right now?
I mean, I just always was I devoted to the pure pursuit of classical music. And it wasn't until I was introduced to punk music that I didn't know that you had any choice or option to express yourself in that way. I just didn't know. I was so kind of naively devoted.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think that to put yourself that deep into something, you need the naiveness. So yeah, I didn't know until I saw punk music, and when I started going to shows, I was like, what am I doing? I'm just playing somebody else's music all the time and executing, trying to perfect, music from history. And it all just, I don't know, it didn't make any sense to me anymore. What I was devoting myself to.
Kind of nice though to have the classical roots, right? Have that as your foundation.
I mean, it's beautiful, and
Yeah.
I still love it.
I was kind of the opposite. I was raised, my parents were into classical and opera, but it was, my rebellion was punk rock. And then later when I kind of grew out of punk, I realized that I was skimming the surface and I felt like I needed to listen to jazz, understand jazz, listen to more complicated, sophisticated music, I guess. Complex, I should say. And so what was the name of the punk band?
Oh God, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me this question. It was called Your Enemy's Friends.
I like this.
Yep.
You were on to frenemy long before that was a term.
Yep. Yeah.
And then from there, how did it go? Your music sort of. So you're in the punk band, and then where did it go next?
I mean, I did the whole band route. I joined another band, and I made my own band, and I was doing that, kind of like a band life until probably 22. Yeah, or 23.
And then what? At 22, 23.
I'm trying to think how I got into. I started a ladies choir in LA Ladies Choir, with Becky Stark. So we had the choir, and then I think around that time I also started making music for like little fashion footage or campaigns or like videos that my friends were making. Like the director Crystal Moselle, she was my friend from then, and she would ask me to put music or sound on the footages that she was shooting. So I started doing that, and I started writing music by myself also. And the first song I wrote, it was on a guitar actually, and the song called "There Are Many of Us" was used for a theme song for "I'm Here," the short story directed by Spike Jonze. And then since from there, I just started getting many offers to score films and score fashion campaigns. And
So the scoring process I'm fascinated by. What the idea of sort of seeing something that's visual, that's narrative, and then interpreting it musically. How was that like an easy adaptation? Was that something that you had a natural sort of affinity for?
well, I didn't know until I started doing this, because I started playing music so young, like before I could speak. I realized that my first language is music. And when like lots of the scoring process is, understanding, expressing the feeling, it's like a nuance of feeling and complexity of what someone's going through that's beyond what we can put into words. And I realized that that's something that I can really execute because of like how young I started playing music, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've scored a lot of films at this point.
Yes, I have scored. I actually had to look at my own IMDb the other day to edit, and I realized I've scored 24 films.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they go, it shifts around, but typically how does it go? Do you get a cut of the film and then you sort of sit with it and absorb it?
Oh, it depends. Like nowadays, sometimes the director will reach out to me when they're writing the script because they're already thinking about the music. And then I read the script, and sometimes I get inspired by the story and emotions of it, and I write music to it, and I send it to the director. It's like a conversation that we start early on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when you read the script, do you walk away with it and kind of let it sort of percolate in your mind?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I kind of live in it.
Yeah.
And then as I I kind of live in it, normally the music starts to come,
Are the majority of the scores that you compose instrumental or both instrumental and vocal?
Sometimes there's vocals. Yeah. Depending on the project and like depending on what it needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What film have you worked on that you're most proud of in terms of what you brought to it?
I have to say After Yang. It's a A24 film directed by Kogonada. And it's also a project that one of the theme songs, it was by Ryuichi Sakamoto, so I got to meet with him.
Wow.
Who was like, he's like my muse, and he's someone that I respected my whole entire life. But yeah, I really, really loved the film, and I really loved collaborating with Kogonada.
What was it like meeting Sakamoto?
Nerve-wracking. I don't normally get like that with anybody, but I definitely was very nervous. And he, like sometimes they say that like the people that you like put on pedestal, they can disappoint you.
Sure.
He did not.
Was it the way he carried himself? Was it things he said?
It was both. It was like the way he was very elegant, really graceful.
Yeah.
And also, obviously very interesting. And he also told me something that really stuck with me from the day we met. He said, you know, like, because he works on film and he also works on his own music. And he said, you know, it's really important to work on the film projects and the things that you're doing now. It's great, you know. But he said, you always have to put aside a time for yourself to create your own music. And when you're doing this, you need to not do anything else but this. And he said, when I do this, he goes, I devote every day of my, every day, like a couple hours every day, even if it means sitting and just staring at the wall. He said, I just put my time into it.
Very interesting.
And he said, you have to do this.
Yeah.
If you want to sustain your love for music.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a kind of writing equivalent to that I know very well, which is I've written full-time for a long time now, and I do a lot of journalism, and there are assignments or there are pieces that I pitch, but they usually have some sort of commercial viability. And I'm always trying to stay in touch with the kind of what I'd be doing if, like, I suddenly inherited, $25 million and I didn't have to worry about doing things for others. What would I do? And that sort of just, and that's maybe a bad example, but just the voices inside and the kind of things that are less designed to fit somewhere else. So have you taken Ryuichi Sakamoto's advice?
Well, right now I have been writing. I've just been sitting at the piano every day, and I've been writing every day. Yeah.
When you're writing, are you writing lyrics or are you writing music?
I actually recently realized that I should just, because, like before I would be making music and I would be using synthesizers and I've been using plug-in, I'm using other, like so many different instruments, and I realized recently that I should try to write something really, like if the essence, if the message, the core is strong, it doesn't need so many layers, And I was thinking I should just write something on piano. That's all it needs.
Yeah.
And if it can stand on its own, like it should, So that's what I'm trying to do right now. But it's been really challenging.
And how so?
Because I'm thinking, I'm like listening to all the piano music I love. Like, I love the, the nun, the Ethiopian nun.
Yes.
I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Yeah.
It's like TSU, Tess. I don't know.
No, I listen to it all the time, but I can't pronounce it either.
I love
so
her
great.
music.
Yeah.
And I listen to, like, I don't know, like I was playing Ravel and I'm like, listening to Ryuichi Sakamoto, and I'm thinking like within just piano, there's so much range of expression. And I'm thinking, what is my voice? What is my expression that's unique to myself?
Yeah. That's exactly what I was getting at with the writing.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because you can have a career where it's, you're earning your livelihood. It's sustaining you, and it can even look really great externally, but there is that strange thing of like what your career can take off in such a way that it's being shaped by others, Yeah, it's really interesting.
And I guess like, when you actually seek like what is unique to me, as long as it's authentic, purely authentic, it will be unique, because we're just all so different.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, I guess like that's where it gets hard, is like, it's actually really hard to not fake yourself or trick yourself with creativity and with all of the things that
Yeah, for sure.
To like strip yourself from everything
Yes.
and to like really ask what is you.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. I'm kind of often going through existential crisis and writing crisis and personality crisis. But a while ago, I was kind of asking myself these very questions, and I realized that, I love writing, and I write all day long, but I wanted to kind of tap into that more whimsical, nuanced voice. And I started doing something called the Morning Pages, and it's from a book called The Artist's Way, which is like a 12-step program for artists. And there's this thing of getting up in the morning and without much thought, just filling three pages of a notebook longhand and just, in many ways, it's almost like tapping into your stream of consciousness or even your unconsciousness to some extent. Is there a musician equivalent, a music equivalent?
I do that.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing every morning every morning I wake up and I sit at a piano and I just play, improvise, and I record it on a cassette tape. So I've been doing that every morning.
And then when you start with that, like that might be a sort of base, and that is something that you're doing unselfconsciously, letting something just sort of channel through you, let's say. As you build that, do you sort of have those melodies in your head and you take them throughout your day while you're taking care of your family and taking walks and surfing perhaps? Like, is it something that where you can kind of hear? And I ask this very like naively, but I'm such a fan of music, but I've never played music, never learned to play. I've tried to play guitar, but it didn't go so well. But I've so often got a song in my head, and if I don't have a song in my head, I've got phrases that I'm writing or there's a music to language that is in my head a lot. But do you have that where it kind of stays with you?
So when I improvise, I often record so I can catch it later.
Yeah.
Like the things that that is like shining. But so lately I'm actually going through all my archives of all the things that I improvised, and it's funny because I looked at my voice memos and I literally have field recordings of like, bells from Vatican, and like I have like ocean from Etretat, France, and like I have ocean rocks from Portland, Oregon, or like I have field recordings.
Wow.
I have so many field recordings, and I also have different piano memos, melody memos, and so I'm kind of going through those little moments that I caught, and now trying to transcribe that into a piece. That's what I'm doing right now. Yeah. So that's like a different step. So like in the morning, I do like that's more like a stream of consciousness. And then later in the day, I kind of try to put it into songs or go into other archives that I have and try to put it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Surfing. How'd you find your way to surfing?
I found my way to surfing through Cassia Medor. She and I became friends, and she asked me to score her film. So, like I was scoring her film, and I was watching, and I was like, wow, like, I mean, of course, it's also because it's Cassia. I'm like, surfing is so beautiful.
Yeah, yes, of course.
And she makes it look very easy and effortless. And so I told her, I was like, wow, I'm, watching you closely and putting sound to you. And I was like, I really want to try this. And she gave me a surfboard and wetsuits. And she was like, okay, let's try. And then we started surfing together.
Nice.
Yeah.
And when you first when she gave you clips of herself to make music to, did you know surfing well, or was it just sort of?
Completely foreign.
Wow.
I was someone who, like as a teenager, I was like punk and also goth. I never wanted to go to the beach unless it was at nighttime.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to hang out on the beach. It was totally not my scene. So no, like I was never like someone who hung out at the beach.
Okay. And when you were in Orange County, where in Orange County were you?
So I grew up in Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, Irvine.
I'm surprised.
Area.
I'm surprised you didn't find your way to surfing being there though at that time, like high school age.
But there was also a big punk scene.
Yeah,
back then
there was.
Yeah. And like the surfers and the punk scene was very opposite. You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
When you scored this piece for Cassia, do you remember what year it was, more or less?
I don't know. I'm really horrible with numbers.
Were you still living down there, or were you up in LA at that point?
I was in LA.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm terrible with numbers and years and
yeah. No, that's perfectly fine. What about so you found your way to surfing? Where did you start, and what made you like it?
Okay, so I actually then just started surfing with Cassia all the time. That I stopped working for 1 year, and I traveled around to wherever she was going with her.
No kidding.
Yep.
And you just had a surfboard with you, and that was like your priority. You sort of
I mean, that was definitely my priority, like I wasn't working for a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So surfing does that to people, but an entire lifetime passes.
I mean, I like was just following her on every surf trip.
Yeah. And what was it that appealed to you? Was it something, I mean, what's interesting is I have a lot of friends who are musicians and touring musicians and the chasing of waves around the world. There's a parallel there,
Mm-hmm.
But did it seem like a different world to you, or did it seem like something you sort of knew in a way, recognized?
I think that what inspires me the most is having fun.
Yeah.
And playing music is fun. It's always been really fun to me. And also surfing is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like an extension of childhood in a way, like the way you play and, there's no much outcome.
Yeah.
But you're just having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because having surfed for so much of my life, there was a time when there weren't so many artists. I mean, there were very creative people in the surf scene,
Mm-hmm.
but now in the last sort of 20 years, I've seen so many great artists find surfing and really connect with it. And I think in many ways, the art making process, be it writing, visual art, music, and surfing, there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of space to interpret in however you want.
Mm-hmm.
There's, it's very different to a game of tennis where someone walks off the court the winner and the other person walks off the loser. It's like dance. It's so expressive in that way. But I think, do you find similarities in being on the water to, being at the piano and not quite knowing where you're going, but you're going to do something?
I guess, yeah, that's true. I guess I never think about it that way, but it is all very intuitive,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I really appreciate about surfing is it reminds me to kind of stay light, and there's like a bounce that comes from it that is very optimistic, hopeful, joyous,
Mm-hmm.
There's like a lightness that happens.
Mm-hmm.
What about when you found your way? So I guess, let me reframe this. Growing up in Japan, was it a more kind of austere upbringing? Was it more formal than what you experienced when you moved to California?
I mean, I think by nature, Japan is, and
Yeah.
Japanese people are.
Yes.
So I remember moving to America, and like when I saw the kids here, I like actually saw everyone was crazy. I was like, these people are really insane. Like,
Yeah.
like the way how expressive people are,
Yeah.
like blew my mind. And I was kind of like scared almost, and like feeling like I don't know if I can trust these people because it's so foreign.
Yeah.
It's so foreign to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very, very different.
What was your upbringing like before you moved to California? You were up to the age of 12. You were in school. Did you wear a uniform? Yeah.
I wore uniform, and yeah, I had many lessons every day. Very, very different.
Do you go back to Japan much?
I'm going in 2 weeks
To play music? To visit family?
to visit family.
Okay. And you're a new mother for the second time around.
Yep.
Okay, here's a weird question for you.
Yeah.
How has being a mom, and now you've done it twice. You have a grown daughter, basically, right?
She's 20,
20. And then you have a new son.
3 months old.
Yeah. Having children, does that affect making music?
Yes.
In what way?
You have to find time,
Yeah.
which is really hard. I think like I actually can't remember how I did it before because I was so young. So I feel like I just did it. It was probably chaotic. And now it's much later, 20 years later, and he's still 3 months old. I'm kind of just writing music any moment I get. I just go.
Yeah.
I just do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it doesn't take that long to create something. It's like a matter of like tiny moment when you create something really that you love, right? Or like you're like, like There's an interview that Ryuichi Sakamoto did, and he talks about when he composed Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, and how that was like maybe the shortest time that he took to write something, and that it's for him is his masterpiece. And I think he said it like took him like 5 minutes or something.
Wow.
And
Bob Dylan famously put out some of his greatest early works with like so quickly. You
yeah,
know?
it's like a burst of like consciousness.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Well,
Yeah.
similar to that thing we were talking about, which is, going to the piano first thing in the morning. In my case, going and writing longhand first thing in the morning. There's a thing that I think can happen where when you don't have time, when you've just got to throw that thing out there,
Have to.
you don't have time to overthink. It's like this deep inner voice happens. It's almost like how one would react in a like, I mean, I hate to use the expression because it's no longer politically correct, but with a gun to your head, like if how you respond in those moments, it's your this inner core of yourself comes out. That's just like your instinct, right? And I have experienced it myself, and I've seen it in my peers where writing a book and you have a crazy deadline, you just got to blast the thing out, and it's actually really, really good because you didn't overthink.
I have something where I need to find it and I need to read it because it really
Yes.
inspired me recently. So this is from, it's called Meeting Our Destiny, and it was a writing that was done by Rudolf Steiner. And he says, it says the sense of destiny, of being moved in a certain direction, feels powerful and actually irresistible, as if there is simply no other choice. And while not everyone is called by destiny to accomplish some great work, everyone is called to live out his or her unique story. And it says, for those who have never fallen in love, you will understand the distinction between moving and being moved. For love calls to us as a powerful force that does not originate within, but comes from the outside. And then it goes to for the truly well-adjusted person, the sense of destiny of being moved in a certain direction. The part that really moved me was like saying like when it's like when you're being called by destiny, it's as you don't have any choice. It's just what you feel like you're here to do and you need to do.
Yes.
And that everybody needs to have this. The
Yeah.
importance of having to do this and find this if you don't have one.
Yeah. A kind of sense of urgency, which is a nice thing. And I would imagine as a mother to a young son, there is a sense of urgency where you don't know when you're going to get that time to make that work, I guess.
Yeah.
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 So the score for this season of the Soundings podcast you've made, and
With pause.
yes, with Paz Linchanton,
Yes.
who actually
Who's
scored a previous season. Who's
so talented.
so talented. You know what's so interesting is I having done this podcast now for a while, hosted this podcast for a while, we had Paz on the show, and she too was introduced to surfing through Cassia, I want to say.
I bet many people are.
Yeah. No.
She's like one of those people,
Yeah.
Cassia is one of those surfer who like opens the door for many people.
Yeah. No, you know what? I'm actually wrong. I think she was already surfing, but she started spending time at San Onofre. And then I think there was this great story Paz told of falling asleep in the back of a van or a truck. And then suddenly the van or truck was moving on the freeway and she looked up and it was Cassia driving, and that's how they met. It's a great story.
It's so funny.
But so you and Paz collaborated on this piece of music that is the theme song for this season of Sounding. So can you talk about that?
So that happened during the year when I stopped working and I was following Cassia around everywhere.
Okay.
Me and Paul went to Byron Bay with Cassia on her surf trip. And I think like our job so we could go for free was to make music.
Yeah.
So we were there to make music for Roxy. And we would be surfing all the time. I mean, that was like, that's all we did. And in between surfing, me and Paul would be in our bathing suits, and we set up a little like music like studio downstairs. And there was a mic. One was facing the ocean, one was in the room because we wanted to also like mix in the sound of the ocean.
Oh yeah.
And because it's just two of us. I think Paz was playing bass and drums, and I was playing keyboard and singing. And we literally would start singing, like, like the song, Give Me a Wave, Wave, Give Me a Wave. We just like start singing these songs, words when we're surfing. And we'd have an idea, and then we'd go to the studio, and then we just kind of jammed. It was
I like
it's
this.
just jamming.
I like this so much.
Yeah.
So they were really not, you didn't rehearse them, you didn't overthink them, they just sort of flung out of you.
Super punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
The Give Me a Wave song is so great, and that may indeed be the song we use. But if we end up using the Sex and Surf, could you tell a little bit about how that song came about? Or
Sex and Surf?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're living.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was our life.
Right.
And we'd be in the ocean, we'd be like, sex and surf, sex and surf. And we're like, wow, this is our song.
So great.
And we'd go record.
And you were sort of still salty and sandy, and you were just in there making the song.
We were literally just in your ratings recording these songs. And, just recording with one mic. And
how fun. So I've asked you what sort of music piece you're most proud of. What about surfing? What's the best surf experience you've had?
The best surf experience I had. I mean, I feel like it's like always like the moments that you have with your friends.
Yeah.
Those are like the most like beautiful, sometimes when you're like in the water and the sky's turning purple and the whole water is purple and you feel like you're gonna like turn to mermaid or something, it's like those moments.
I feel that way too. It's so interesting because I think when I was younger, it was much more performance/ego based. It was sort of like what I did on like what wave
because
I
you're
got.
surfing at different level.
Well, yeah,
I don't have that experience.
Yeah, but not so much anymore. Now I'm much more kind of cruisy and existential, and so I'm the experiential, I should say.
Right.
It's like a beautiful sky and a quiet moment can really be the thing that I take away with me more so than like how hard I snapped out of the lip or what have you.
I don't have that because I can't do it. So that's why my experiences are more like, external.
Yeah. Do you think because I see you surfing a lot, you love to surf. Do you feel like surfing in some way feeds your music?
I don't know if it directly feeds. It's just more, it's like a flow, It maybe feeds in the flow of my life and therefore it flows into my music.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a question. I mean, I kind of got a sense of it because you mentioned going straight in the morning over to your piano, but what's like a typical day in the life like for you?
Well, right now it's very, I have a 3-month-old baby. So it's literally like my day right now is like waking up, feeding the baby because I'm breastfeeding. And then he goes for a walk with a nanny. So every time he goes out, I go to the piano and I just write. I'm either like writing or eating in between surfing.
Yeah.
But my life is very simple right now.
Sounds really
And I'm
nice.
also starting work too. So
Okay.
yeah.
What are you working on now?
I'm working. I have a few projects that I can't.
NDAs.
NDAs. Yes. Yes, exactly.
I got it.
Yes. So I have some TV shows that I'm working on that's going to be very exciting.
Great.
Yeah.
What about collaborations with directors? Has that been a fortifying thing? Have you had any great ones where you learned a lot from the experience?
I learn from every director that I work with. And yeah, it's a different learning experience with everyone. And it's been like, I've had amazing collaboration with many people.
And what instruments do you play aside from piano and guitar?
I'm very into synthesizers. Love synthesizers. And yeah, that's all. I play like a little bit of bass.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a favorite surfer?
I love Jared Mel.
Oh, yeah. So good. So good.
So fun.
Yeah.
So unpredictable.
Yes. I saw Jared in Bali maybe a year ago this time.
Oh, you did?
He was in great form. I saw him at a little cafe, and I might as well have watched him surf. He's got a very like distinct style in and out of the water.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I love watching him surf. It's so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very dynamic.
Yeah. And do you have an all-time favorite musician?
Ravel.
Mm.
I love Ravel.
Mm-hmm.
I love his harmonies, and I love his voicing, and I love his melodies, and that's someone that I think that like I'm like when I feel lost in my writing, I just go to Ravel.
Mm-hmm.
I play some Ravel pieces, and I'm like, okay,
Very nice.
that's where I seek out.
Yeah. Having spent much of your life, your entire life, it sounds, most of your life in music, what have you learned? What is it? What would you feel what would you say it's given you?
I mean, I don't know. It's because I can't imagine my life without music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's kind of like everything I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I always said that if I didn't know how to, if I actually couldn't make music, like my life, like the way like I built my career with music, I think I would have not had one. Like I would have been like homeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I can't do anything else. I'm not good at doing anything else.
Well, Aska, thank you so much for taking the time and great talking with you.
Thank you.
Soundings is produced by me, Jamie Brisick, and Jonathan Shiflett. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Our theme song is Give Me a Wave by Aska Matsumiya and Poslin Chanton. Soundings is brought to you by the Surfer's Journal, a reader-supported publication, made possible by sponsorship from FCS, Finisterre, Howler Brothers, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, and Yeti. The journal is published bi-monthly. If you haven't done so already, I encourage you to visit surfersjournal.com and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening to Soundings. We appreciate you, and until next time.